Welcome to Fan for Racing Radio. I'm Fan for Racing Sharon, and joining me today is Jay Huseman, and we are here for the Dover preview for the NASCAR Cup Series. 3 races out at Dover this weekend, Jay, and I'm sure you've taken a look at the entry list.
I have, and I know we already kind of had a preliminary discussion. I'm going to go with what's on the entry list as published. It shows the only open team as the number 44 of J.J. Yaley. And we will just mention, we don't need to go into the discussion yet. I know we will Monday. Coming up, again, it's a possibility that 2311 and Front Row Motorsports may be open teams. As far as we know, at this point through Indianapolis, they won't be. If that changes, we'll talk about it later. But J.J. Yaley and the 44.
Coming out sometime in the next couple of days. So will be big news. Okay, so tell us, only one open team?
Yep, that 44 for J.J. Yaley is the only extra one listed. Little surprising, again, a team or a track close to home. I know when we're on the West Coast, we didn't see a lot of the open teams showing up out there. Thought Dover, especially with the Xfinity and ARCA series there, I thought maybe, and the Truck Series being off, maybe we'd see a couple more, but that's what we got.
All right. Well, the NASCAR Cup Series will be racing that AutoTrader EchoPark Automotive 400 at Dover Motor Speedway on Sunday, July the 20th. It is a 1-mile concrete oval, and that race should start sometime around 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, TNT will have the coverage as part of the in-season challenge tournament, and that's coverage starts at 1:30 p.m. pre-race coverage. PRN and SiriusXM NASCAR Channel 90 will also carry coverage. They are racing 400 miles over 400 laps. Stage 1 ends on lap 120. Stage 2 is going to be 130 laps, ending on lap 250. And then the final stage ends on lap 400. Okay, now where do you watch this weekend? Well, they'll have the Cup Series practice and Busch Light pole qualifying on True TV, PRN, and SiriusXM starting at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday. That's July the 19th. Though on Sunday, July the 20th, they'll have the Cup Series on TNT, PRN, and SiriusXM at 2 p.m., as we mentioned earlier. But remember, there is the in-season challenge outcast that will be running at the same time on True TV, as well as PRN and SiriusXM at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. I kind of alternate back and forth. I watch a little bit of the outcast and then a little bit of the race coverage.
I know I heard Larry McReynolds talk about that. It was kind of a new thing this year, along with the in-season challenge. He said he didn't know what to expect, but they're having a lot of fun with it, him and Jeff Burton, as well as guests every week. This past weekend, they had John Christ, a comedian, on there with them as well. So they had a real good time, apparently.
Well, let's go ahead and get started with our bullet points here.
All right. This weekend marks the 107th running of a NASCAR Cup Series race at Dover Motor Speedway, and that runs from 1969 to 2025. Now, this season does mark the 5th straight season, though, that Dover has hosted only 1 race per year versus the normal 2.
Denny Hamlin actually is the defending winner. He won here last year, and he is the only repeat winner in the last 7 Dover races.
And with that, you got to look at 2 powerhouse teams. Hendrick Motorsports with 8 and Joe Gibbs Racing with 6 have combined to win 14 of the last 19 Dover Cup races.
And a Dover race winner finished outside the top 10 in a stage in only 1 of the 24 stages at Dover. So that's kind of interesting.
And with that, the stages and race win were swept 3 times in track history. Kevin Harvick did it in 2018 and 2020. And then Denny Hamlin also in 2020, because that was when they still had 2 races.
Now, only 3 of the last 8 Dover races had a final green flag stretch, less than 62 laps.
And Dover has only produced 2 first-time Cup Series winners. Jody Ridley in 1981 in May. And I just listened to that on Sirius XM radio, a bit of it. And then Martin Truex Jr. in June of 2007. And we talked about this through all the series. This track is one that you got to learn how to race. So it definitely favors the veterans like Denny Hamlin.
Now, the Dover race winner led at least 68 laps in each of the last 8 races as well.
And Sharon talked about those green flag stretches. None of the last 8 races of Dover have ended in overtime.
And the driver starting first failed to win in the last 24 Dover races. So I always look for those little clues, and that's a clue. Whoever gets that pole might not be the race winner.
Now, the driver leading the most laps has only won 3 of the last 9 races, and that includes Denny Hamlin last year. So there too, leading up front all the race, not necessarily the case here at Dover.
Late in 1995, Dover's concrete track surface is the oldest oval surface in the Cup Series schedule.
Alex Bowman in May of 21, Denny Hamlin in August of 20, and then April of 2024 are the only drivers to win in the last 28 Dover races who don't have a Cup championship. There again, that tells you it's the guys that veterans all the way through. However, we know Denny Hamlin's been a championship contender.
Yes. Now, the winners of the last 5 Dover races combined made a total of 4 green flag pit stops, and all were in the last 2 races with 2 each.
3 of the last 8 Dover races ended on Mondays, though, including 2 of the last 3. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. Keep your Monday free just in case.
Okay, and Alex Bowman's 6 top 10 finishes at Dover since the start of 2019 are the most among all active drivers and are tied for the most with Martin Truex Jr. and Kevin Harvick.
I know they were talking about this. Unfortunately, Alex Bowman no longer in the in-season challenge. This would have fit well into if he'd have been in the Final Four matchup. But this is another one, history in the making. Joey Logano is making his 600th Cup Series start at Dover this weekend. He made his NASCAR debut in the top 3 series at Dover in 2008 Xfinity Series race, having finished 6th. The only driver to win in their 600th Cup start was Richard Petty, and that was at Richmond in February of 1973.
That goes back a way. All right, now Joey Logano will be the youngest driver to ever reach that 600 start milestone.
And one other little note with that, Logano is the 6th driver to make their 600 career start at Dover.
Also, Chris Buescher is making his 350th career Cup start and 200th start with RFK Racing this weekend. These 3 drivers have won in their 350th Cup start. Most recently, that was Tony Stewart at Talladega in October of 2008.
One last one is Daniel Suarez. He's making 200 consecutive start this weekend at Dover.
And Kyle Busch leads all active drivers in Cup Series wins at Dover with 3. He won there in 2008, 10, and 17.
And we've talked about that as far as it being a veteran-style track. So a total of 6 of the 39 NASCAR Cup Series Dover Motor Speedway race winners are active this weekend. Mentioned Kyle Busch with his 3. You also got Denny Hamlin with 2 in 2020 and 2024 mentioned. Chase Elliott has a pair in 18 and 22. And then Alex Bowman got one in 2021, Kyle Larson in 2019. And back in 2012, you had Brad Keselowski.
And there were only 5 cautions at Dover last April. That's the fewest in the last 5 races there.
Qualifying has only been held in 7 of the last 15 Dover races, only twice in the last 6. And I know we were talking about the Monday race as well. Rain has been an issue as part of it. COVID was part of it as well.
No driver has ever won at Dover from below the playoff cut line in the regular season. So that's kind of interesting. We might not see somebody below that cut line winning this week.
And continuing on that, under the current points format, which is started in 2017, running through 2025 now, only one driver has ever pointed into the playoffs from below that cutoff point at this point or later in the season. and that was Clint Boyer in 2019. He was 2 points below entering the Dover race.
A driver has won their way into the playoffs at this point or later in the season every year since 2020.
All right, we talked about that. Points is tough. Win, not easy, but it guarantees. So there you go. Breaking that down, Bubba Wallace has been on the regular season playoff bubble, 16th or 17th in the standings, more than any other driver in the next gen era, and that's been 22 times.
In 2024, 3 drivers that were above the cut line after race 20 ended up missing the playoffs. Ross Chastain, Chris Buescher, and Bubba Wallace. That would be so disappointing.
And I remember the heartbreak for each one of them. Again, we like to see who gets in, but that means somebody has to come out. Now, the last 6 consecutive seasons have seen at least one driver above the cut line at this point or later in the season go on to miss the playoffs. Again, that it's so tight and competitive.
It is indeed. One of the drivers you want to watch this week is Chase Elliott. Was the best finishing Hendrick Motorsports driver in 4 of the last 5 races in this season. He was the best finishing Hendrick car in only 1 of the first 15 races.
Yeah, we've seen that switch around a little bit. Kyle Larson kind of in the slump right now. Chase Elliott coming on hot. So we'll see how that regular season championship plays out as well. 8 Stage 2 winners in 2025 have gone on to win the race. That is the most through 20 races in a season, and the most in a season since 13 in 2021. So, Sharon, you said you're watching those key elements during a race. Stage 2 winners, you might want to start putting some money on them.
Also, Shane Van Gisbergen's 3 wins from the pole in 2025 are the most by a driver in a season since Jimmy Johnson did it in 2008, and are tied for the most of all drivers in the next-gen era with Joey Logano.
All right, and this is going to explain what I just said. Kyle Larson's average finish in the 8 races since the Indy 500 is nearly 10 positions worse than the first 12 races of the season. Heard a lot of callers calling in on SiriusXM about that. Now have the stats to it. They're not lying. Since the Indy 500 double, Kyle Larson has just seemed to struggle.
Let's talk about the clinch scenarios, Jay, because they're winding down their season too.
All right. Well, starting with the already clinched, we have 4 drivers that have clinched a spot into the 16 driver postseason. That's Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, Christopher Bell, and Shane Van Gisbergen. And the next category will help explain why I didn't name some other winners.
So those drivers could clinch on previous wins with a win by William Byron, Chase Elliott, Larson, Hamlin, Bell, Blaney, Briscoe, Chastain, Logano, and Van Gisbergen, which are the drivers that are in the play in those top 16. William Byron and Chase Elliott both need some additional help to qualify.
I'll go into this a little bit more here. The following drivers would clinch on their win alone: William Byron, Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney, Chase Briscoe, Ross Chastain, Joey Logano, Austin Cindric, and Josh Berry. And the reason those with 1 win, it does lock you into the playoffs. However, it is still mathematically possible we could have more than 16. So the true guarantee of being in the playoffs is 2 victories. We have yet to see 1 win not get you in, but mathematically it's still possible 1 win may not get you in. You would have to have the wheels and the steering wheel and the roof and everything else fall off the car for it to not, but it is mathematically possible.
Well, did you want to cover the points report before we do that?
William Byron is your points leader. Again, does have a victory. And like I said, for him to not make the playoffs with a win, I can't even imagine all the different bad scenarios that would have to happen. So, but he's your points leader right now, 14 points ahead of Chase Elliott. At one point, Kyle Larson and Byron were swapping it back and forth. Now it's Chase Elliott closing in. Byron's been on a little bit of a slump as well. Elliott up to second with 1 win now, has 5 playoff points. Byron has 12. Kyle Larson, that first part of the season, 3 wins, 8 stages has built up 23 playoff points. Tyler Reddick is in 4th, doesn't have a win yet, so he certainly is not guaranteed in as of yet. As we get closer and wind down shorter, fewer races, we'll talk more about that. Then you got Denny Hamlin and Christopher Bell. They each got 3 wins and 19 and 16 playoff points respectively. They're the other double digits. Ryan Blaney in 7th, 1 win, 9 playoff points. Chase Briscoe a win and 6. Ross Chastain a win and 6. Chris Buescher in 10th. This one's interesting. No wins and -4 playoff points due to a penalty. So again, at this point, he's still starting in the hole, and he's got to stay in the playoffs. Joey Logano has a win, is at 7 playoff points. Alex Bowman at 498. We're going to tie him in here in a minute. Doesn't have a win, no playoff points built up. Nor does Bubba Wallace in 13th or Ryan Preece. Now, Bubba Wallace does have 2 playoff points, as does Preece, if they can get into the playoffs.
And he is he's on the top of the cut line, where Ryan Preece is below that line.
Right. We'll come back to that. So 469 and 466, 13th and 14th in points. Kyle Busch in 15th, AJ Allmendinger in 16th. However, you got to go down right now. Austin Cindric in 20th, Josh Berry in 21st, and then Shane Van Gisbergen now up to 26th. They have wins, so that would, on a reseeding, move them in. And as Sharon mentioned, the cut line is technically 13th, Bubba Wallace at 469. Ryan Preece 3 points behind at 466. Kyle Busch is only, 34 points behind. AJ Allmendinger a little bit more at 419. At this point, you're looking at that probably being the win that you must win to get in. However, what do we have left? 6 races. So Allmendinger at 419, Ty Gibbs at 409, Eric Jones 401. They'd have to have the good races. The drivers right above them have some bad and close that gap. But easiest way is win, and that will move you in, unless, I mentioned, there might be 16 or more. Then we'll have another whole discussion.
So,
all right. Yeah. So that's the playoff bubble, and that's important. But right now we got the in-season challenge going on as well. Just so fans, if you weren't aware of it, we started with 32 in points following Nashville. We're eligible for the in-season challenge. Of the charter team, Shane Van Gisbergen, Cole Custer, Riley Herbst, and Cody Ware failed to qualify amongst those full-time drivers. And I'll say this, it's a good thing Van Gisbergen didn't get in, because if not, he'd probably be the one out front right now.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, so here's the in-season challenge. And now we will go in depth with this on Friday with our fantasy preview for the in-season challenge. Right now, the drivers that are still in it are Ty Dillon. He won the matchup between himself and Bowman. John Hunter Nemechek won over Eric Jones. And then Reddick won over the Preece-Reddick matchup. And Gibbs came out on top in between Gibbs and Smith, Zane Smith. So those are the last 4 drivers. And that's going to determine the 2 drivers that will contend for the championship at Indianapolis. So it's going to be fun. And we will talk about this in depth on Friday with Taz. Be sure to tune in. We will put that out on Friday afternoon so that you've got plenty of time to look it over before we get into the race on Sunday.
Yep.
Was there anything else that you wanted to touch on?
No, I'm kind of afraid, because this is about the time you asked me who I think is going to win. And again, Oh, man. You know, with what we read on Hendrick Motorsports and Joe Gibbs Racing, this is one of those, and we've seen him be a little quiet on the track as of late. I would have to lean towards Denny Hamlin with Joe Gibbs Racing. It's a track he's very good at. Like I said, he's been kind of quiet, and we've seen that. I think it's time for him to come back to form.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. Joe Gibbs Racing is very, very good. It's going to be interesting, but I would say that Denny Hamlin has to be the favorite. I've been really impressed though with Chase Briscoe. He's been doing pretty good, and he is also a Joe Gibbs Racing driver. It wouldn't surprise me if it isn't those two drivers at the end.
And that certainly could be. I'd have to go in depth on Chase Briscoe's Dover stats, but being in a Joe Gibbs Racing machine, and we saw that at Sonoma, leaning back on what they had learned with Martin Truex in that car, and we saw Martin Truex won there as a rookie back in first-time winner, not a rookie, but a first-time winner at Dover, of one of only two drivers to do so at Dover. So, yeah, they may have some insight there that'll help that number 19 team. That's pretty solid there, Sharon.
Yeah, let's take a look at these box scores. They're showing Jimmy Johnson as the top. His box score is 109.7. Then you've got Kyle Larson, could be another contender. He's got a high box score of 103.7. Then Kyle Busch is next at 102, and Martin Truex Jr. But guess who is next in line here? Chase Elliott at 96.1, and Denny Hamlin at the 91.6. The other thing that I like to look at, though, is where they start and where they finish, because it kind of gives you an idea of who's moving up through the field and who's really moving backwards in the field. When you look at average finish, the best average finish is actually Kyle Larson, Jay, and he starts at 8.7 and ends at 8.2.
Well, and if I'd have gone Hendrick Motorsports side of it, Kyle Larson being one, kind of like Denny Hamlin, hasn't been up front as much as we've seen in the past few weeks we talked about, so needing the rebound. And then the other one you mentioned, Chase Elliott, because he has been on point as of late, talk about being the highest finishing Hendrick Motorsports. So either one of those. The one that caught me there, and I would love to see it, would be Kyle Busch. I mean, you talk about needing to make a comeback just with Richard Childress Racing and for his past two seasons, and that would upset that playoff bubble apple cart we were talking about. So I would love to see Kyle Busch get a win this weekend.
Yeah, I think Kyle Busch is very good at passing there, but here's the stat that I like to look at. He's got an average start of 9.8, but his average finish is at 13.9. So he's an example of a driver that goes kind of in the opposite direction from start to finish. So Chase Elliott, on the other hand, is very comparable. He starts at 9.9 and ends at 9.5. So pretty cool to kind of look at some of these stats. Denny Hamlin, though, is another driver that tends to go backwards. He starts at 9.8 but finishes at 15.6. Some interesting stats there to look at. But Denny Hamlin is your defending winner this weekend.
Yeah, I still, like I said, I think I just got to give that little bit of an edge to Joe Gibbs Racing right now on that side of it.
I would agree.
But
I wanted to see where Chase Briscoe is on this list.
Oh yeah, look at him. What'd you find on him?
Let's see, where is Briscoe? Yeah, his average start in the race is at 13.3, but his average finish comes in at 24.3, and his box score is in the 50s. So yeah, maybe he's not going to be as good as I think.
Well, and here's where you can't just go by statistics, because again, this is his first year with Joe Gibbs Racing, moving over from Ford to Toyota, Stewart-Haas Racing over to Toyota. So I think that does play a big factor, and we've seen it throughout this year. They've been building on that relationship and getting better. That's why I look at more the current season of what I've seen from him this current season.
And there's validity to that, because the current season, Kyle Busch has been coming on as of lately, but his season started pretty rocky.
Yeah, and I look at Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing as well. We've seen them where they've put 3 cars in the top 10. I don't know if we see that at Dover. Again, I still got hope. we know Shane Van Gisbergen from the 26 has made it into the playoffs. Brad Keselowski's right behind him in 27th. And I'm trying to think where he got Darlington. Is that where he got his win last year to get in? I don't remember. I know he got a win late in the season to get in, so it is possible.
So we'll see what happens. And Buescher, too. You definitely want to keep an eye on those guys.
On Buescher, he's a little bit further up in points. Talking about Roush Fenway Keselowski, because Preece is the one right on bubble with Bubba Wallace as in right now, 3 points. Buescher being up at 500, again, if we get somebody that wins from below the line, that just puts him more at risk. So if Brad were to win, it would affect his team.
Okay, so watch for more from Fan for Racing Radio. We've completed all of our previews at this point, and so those will be up on Thursday for everybody to take a look at and get to see them before the races begin on Friday night for the ARCA Menards and ARCA East Series. So it'll be Saturday for Xfinity and Sunday for the Cups. And then we'll be back on Monday with all of the reviews of the racing at Dover this weekend, and as well as our Hot Topic Sound Off conversation that will take place Monday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And I'm loving the interaction that we're getting with a few of the people coming to our Hot Topic Sound Off live stream.
And you mentioned it earlier, I think already just since Monday of getting 2 or 3 new subscribers. So we greatly appreciate it, and hopefully it keeps climbing.
Yes, indeed. We're looking forward to that. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in and for subscribing to the channel. We do appreciate it. And we hope you enjoy your weekend of racing. And we'll look forward to seeing you guys on the other side.
All right. We'll talk to you on Friday.
We'll be back on Friday.
That's right. We'll get Taz in here and we'll have a good discussion on that in-season challenge.
Yes, indeed. Okay. Take care, everybody.